3。各位贵宾早安，欢迎参加由非凡电视台财团法人非凡财经研究发展基金会。
Welcome to this conference co-hosted by USTV, USTV Financial R&D Foundation, and Taiwan Smart City Solutions Alliance. This forum is being live-streamed online, and we provide English simultaneous interpretation. The forum will begin in 3 minutes. To make sure everything goes smoothly, please turn off your phones or switch them to silent mode. In addition, kindly wear a mask indoors except when drinking water. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Welcome to the 2023 Green Low Carbon and Sustainable City Green Energy New Economic Impetus Forum, co-hosted by USTV and Taiwan Smart City Solutions Alliance, TSSA. I'm your MC for today, Cathy Ye. Good morning. In response to the intensifying extreme weather events due to climate change, the 2050 net zero target has become a global priority. And the EU is also set to implement tariffs on highly polluting products like steel and cement starting October this year. Green sustainability is no longer just a slogan, but an urgent issue steadily approaching. We are very happy to have many distinguished guests with us today to discuss green finance. This morning, we are going to focus on the financial industry. What kind of role does the industry play in green sustainability? I believe we can learn a lot from our guests. Now, I'd like to extend a warm welcome to the guests. First of all, Vice Chairperson Jin Chu from the Financial Supervisory Commission. Chairman Shen Rongjing from Taiwan Financial Holdings Group. Chief Strategy Officer Liao Yingzhi from Chinese Holding. Senior Vice President Peng Guogui from Shanghai Commercial and Savings Bank. Executive Vice President Kelvin Liao from Bank Sinopac. And also from our organizer, Vice President Deng Meihua from USTV, CEO Liang Baohua from USTV Financial R&D Foundation. Now, we also will be joined by 10 mayors and county commissioners from across Taiwan. Let's watch a video.
台中的永续发展是秀燕从政的核心目标，不止8年执政，也为城市100年的发展设定良好的方向。台中透过宣示2050净零碳排倡议，推动能源转型、产业转型以及生活转型，持续往正确的道路前进。
因为大家共同努力的结果，使得我们每年绿能的发电已经达到49.5亿度。另外呢，台南市也因为这样子获得了2022年的国家永续发展奖。
气候变迁对每一个城市、国家而言都是一个严峻的挑战，没有人可以置身事外。如何落实2030年低碳城市？我们希望说能够繁荣共享，不遗落任何人，把高雄打造成为一个绿色、低碳、永续的城市。
新竹县身为地球城市的一份子，以拼经济、重文教、人民享福利、乐安居为己任，让科技首都幸福永续。
新竹市身为全球的科技重镇，我们会因应国际的气候变迁的永续发展的相关的战略。那同时呢，我们会落实温室气体的减量，成立专责的单位。那我们希望能够为下一代可以打造更好的新竹市。
响应2050净零碳排，永续发展不再是选择，而是责任。彰化县政府以全球思考、在地行动来出发，全力打造低碳家园，迈向永续幸福的城市。
南投县将会以低碳永续为核心，数位创新为解方，打造全民有感的宜居城市，
接轨国际，迈向永续城市。未来云林县221项计划都将符合联合国 SDGs 的规范。2030云林永续发展主轴将以永续农业、大健康产业、绿色典范经济发展为3大亮点。
嘉义县是以农工大县为发展的目标，但是也要兼顾环境的平衡，所以我们在创新经济、在低碳运输或者是在绿电的发展，我们都往尽心尽力，努力来维持这个城市的永续发展。嘉义县现在绿电的发电量已经可以 cover 掉我们现在嘉义县的所有的民生用电，所以我们希望为地球、为台湾尽一份最大的心力。我们也希望在2050净零碳排这样的一个目标里面，我们为永续城市的发展尽最大的努力。
对于屏东来说，永续发展是必然的过程。我们努力透过永续环境跟产业的发展建制，开创屏东的多元面貌。未来我们的竞争优势就在这里。
绿色低碳永续城市。
Once again, I'd like to thank all the mayors and commissioners for sharing with us their vision. Of course, if we want to promote sustainable development, we also need the efforts from our private sector. So in today's forum, we are going to focus on green finance and will be joined by leaders from the financial industry. And this afternoon, we'll be focusing on the energy sector. And again, we'll be joined by leaders from the industry. So first of all, without further ado, I'd like to invite the representative from the organizer, CEO Liang Baohua from USTV Financial R&D Foundation to say a few words. Vice Chairperson Chiu, Chairman Shen, ladies and gentlemen, and also the audience online, good morning. First of all, on behalf of the organizers, USTV and USTV Financial R&D Foundation and the Taiwan Smart City Solutions Alliance, I want to thank you for joining us in today's forum. We have an afternoon session as well, but in the morning session, we'll be focusing on the financial industry. And we'll be joined by 3 leaders of the financial industry. The first one is Chief Strategy Officer Liao Yingzhi from Chalice Holding. The second one is Senior Vice President Hong Guogui from Shanghai Commercial and Savings Bank. And also the Executive Vice President Kelvin Liao from Bank Sinopac. In the afternoon, we'll be joined by Minister Gong Mingxin from the National Development Council. We'll also be joined by President Jing Qi of the Taiwan Smart City Solutions Alliance. She also works at Taiwan Telecom. Now, the reason why we have this lineup is that currently our industry is facing a challenge on the regulatory front, and our industries are also moving towards net zero. In 2015, the UN already passed a strategy for 2030, and the strategy outlines many policies relating to net zero emissions. And in October this year, the EU will also start to implement CBAM, which is a border carbon tax system. So many companies that are trading with the EU will have to comply with the new regulation. And the US, they are also working on a number of policies, and many of these policies will take effect in 2024. And the US policies are also more even more stringent than those of the EU. This is why I said we are currently facing a major challenge. Countries around the world are moving towards net zero, and Taiwan has to be part of it as well. Otherwise, we'll lag behind. Many multinationals have already moved forward. For example, TSMC, it already purchases about 80% of the green energy generated in Taiwan. This is because they have been required to do so by their own clients, and very soon they'll move to 100% renewable energy. Apple, of course, sells its mobile phones to the US and the European market, so they also have to comply with these regulations. This is why multinationals are moving even faster than a lot of national governments. So in Taiwan, our industries are facing pressure from their own clients, and they also have to comply with other countries' rules. But what about Taiwan? What have we done? I think Taiwan is actually doing quite well despite all the difficulties. And I have to first talk about the Financial Supervisory Commission. The chairperson, Huang Tianmu, took office in 2020, and he's been promoting the ESG practice in our financial industry. It's actually quite easy for the financial industry to cut their own carbon emissions because they don't really emit that much. However, they have tools, which is the provision of funding. So by using this tool, the financial industry can push other sectors to cut carbon emissions. I think this is why the financial industry, in fact, plays a very important role. And the FSC also requires listed companies to make improvements on the ESG front. Now, under the leadership of the FSC, the Financial Supervisory Commission, our companies are also moving towards better ESG. But another problem is that we have 500,000 small and medium enterprises, SMEs, in Taiwan. So SMEs have to bear the costs of adopting green technologies and compliance with regulations. How should these SMEs deal with this situation? It's indeed a great challenge. Now, listed companies can also work with their supply chain partners. But many SMEs are not within the supply chain. So how do we lead them onto the path of net zero? I think that's another challenge that we have to face. So as mentioned earlier, in the morning, we'll focus on the financial industry. In the afternoon, we'll be joined by the chairman of CBC Corporation, Li Shunqing, and the Chief Administration Officer Wang Ducun of ASE Group, and the General Manager Zhao Shuming from J&V Energy Technology. I believe that these leaders will also provide us with some insight into how to cut carbon emissions. So I believe that we'll all learn a lot from this forum. Lastly, I wish you all happiness and health. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Liang. Now I'd like to invite Vice Chairperson Jean Chu from the Financial Supervisory Commission to say a few words. USTV Financial R&D Foundation, CEO Mr. Liang, Chairman Shen from Taiwan Financial Holdings Group, Mr. Liao, Chief Strategy Officer from Chinese Holding, and Mr. Liao from Bank Sinopac, Mr. Peng from Shanghai Commercial and Savings Bank. Dear friends, ladies and gentlemen present today who care about the sustainable development of the society, good morning, everyone. Good morning. I am honored to be invited by USTV to say a few words today. I'd like to thank Mr. Liang for his support to Financial Supervisory Commission. The chairperson, Huang, wanted to be here, but he has other business to do in the legislature this morning. So he asked me to represent the FSC to say a few words to you this morning. Very simply, the message that we want to convey to you is that 2050 net zero pathway is long and far, but actions can make progress. If we work together with the public and private sectors, there will be power. This is a simple message that we'd like to convey to you this morning. This year is 2023, which is an important year. Why so? Well, because our care about environmental sustainability has three things that are happening. First of all, Climate Change Response Act has been passed by the President, announced by the President. So our commitment has turned into a legal responsibility. Second, publicly listed companies with more than 10 billion NTD capital, including steel and cement industries, starting from this year, will have to disclose their carbon emissions, which means that this has become their legal obligation. They need to disclose their carbon emissions in a scientific way, and they need to scientifically manage their carbon emissions as well. The third point is about the financial industry. In 2023, the financial sector needs to disclose relevant financial results, which is TCFD, as you may know. So why is it important to disclose such data? Well, the financial institutions need to disclose their governance all the way from their BOD's governance, their directions, their organization structures, and also in terms of their strategies. They need to disclose what kind of risks and opportunities that they are seeing. And third, they know that these risks exist and how are they going to manage them. Well, financial institutions are all about shoulder risks and manage and profit from such risks. So how do they grow together with their clients? How do they manage together with their clients such risks and identify directions for their clients and identify their niche markets? This is very important for financial institutions. And also goal management. With all these strategies, how do we manage such goals in a scientific way? Every year, there needs to be goals and feasible goals and evaluable goals. So this is how we move forward. So with these three things together in this industry, what will happen exactly? On the client side, first of all, publicly listed companies, starting from big ones, with a capital higher than 10 billion NT dollars, these large companies will lead the way and influence relatively smaller companies so that everyone pays attention to the 2050 net zero emission pathway. In the financial sector, the capital is about 6 times as large as our total GDP. And the clients of the financial industry include all the large and small businesses in Taiwan. So it's important for all the sectors to work together to unleash great potential. From the lending side, financial institutions can negotiate and communicate with their clients about net zero emissions and energy transition. So there can be discussions with clients on lending. And as for investment, financial institutions also would encourage their clients to direct their capital towards greener investment. As for products, FSC will actively promote the issuance of sustainability bonds and green bonds so that small and big enterprises can use such tools to improve their production processes. We have quite a few representatives from the financial industry. So there have been a series of different tools. For example, at a certain level of improvement, the interest rates can be adjusted. This is how the financial industry and their clients work together towards the 2050 goals. The FSC has always told the industry, the financial industry, that their clients' risks are the risks of the financial institutions, and if the assets are not managed properly, if they don't help clients properly, there's no profit and there's no room for sustainable development. Clients' opportunities are your opportunities. We need to help clients manage such risks so that the 2050 pathway can be achieved in a sustainable way with great directions. Last but not least, I want to tell you that the FSC has been actively promoting a few things. First of all, we will continue to support lending to SMEs and the 6 core industries, hoping that funding can be provided for them so that they can be supported in terms of 2050 net zero emissions goals. Second, we will continue to encourage financial institutions to participate in low carbon, sustainable, eco-friendly, energy efficient projects in order to achieve carbon capture and carbon storage related technologies. Another thing which I just mentioned is scientific management. Scientific management requires data as foundation. So within 2 years, the FSC will establish a database related to climate. The data sources include sustainability reports from publicly listed companies, including the usage of electricity, water, and this database will also interface rainfall-related, climate change-related data from government agencies. Also, there will be data collected by financial institutions so that the supply of data can be scientific and the data can be managed scientifically. Finally, I want to say that the 2050 net zero pathway is far indeed, and the scope is broad, which requires collective efforts of the public and private sectors. In terms of the public sectors, it includes many different ministries and government agencies in order to establish a greener and more sustainable environment. The government will make the best efforts to help everyone. As for the private sector, enterprises, individuals, the academia, and international cooperation are all required. This is something that requires everyone's efforts in order to go towards the same direction. Last but not least, as I said, actions lead to progress. Cooperation between the public and private sectors can bring power. I wish a great success to the forum, and that in the near future, we can go towards this ideal landscape. Thank you, Ms. Chiu. Please return to your seat. Now, I'd like to invite Chairman Shen Rongjing from Taiwan Financial Holdings Group to say a few words. Dear organizers, USTV Financial R&D Foundation, Mr. CEO Liang Baohua, my good friend, and also Taiwan Smart City Solutions Alliance, TSSA, which is supporting this great event. And also Ms. Chiu, Vice Chairperson Ms. Jing Chiu, dear friends, good morning, everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank once again the organizer to focus on low carbon and sustainability while holding 2023 Green Energy New Economic Impetus Forum. I'd also like to thank the support of the financial sector and your participation. A while ago, the two speakers both mentioned climate change and that Europe, America, and Japan have all announced 2050 or 2060 net zero emission goals. Especially Mr. Liang Baohua mentioned that the European Union, in terms of CBAM, will take some actions in order to achieve carbon reduction in a faster manner. You also mentioned a while ago that large enterprises around the world have joined RE100 initiative. With this initiative, they announce their emission reduction timelines and goals. And most importantly, they ask their supply chains and suppliers to set up carbon reduction strategies and use green electricity. Under such circumstances, President Tsai Ing-wen also promised that Taiwan would continue with energy transition. I'd like to take this opportunity to also tell you that in terms of energy transition, the financial industry has supported the installation of solar PVs. So far, we have established 110 million gigawatts. This figure may not resonate much with you, but let me be more concrete. In Taichung, the coal-fired power plant is in total, the capacity is 0.55 million. But now we have 11 million gigawatts, so which is 2 times as large as the capacity of the coal-fired power plant in Taichung. So now you feel how much the figure is. And in terms of offshore wind power, there seems to be some delay, but that's due to the pandemic over the last 3 years. We continue to make efforts, and on the west coast of Taiwan, there are more and more wind turbines installed. And last night, I participated in an event in which we talked about that business opportunities could also make relevant industries prosper in Taiwan. When you go to Bali, to Taipei Harbor, you see Century Wind Power is working on underwater foundations, and foreign companies have told us that Taiwan is really making great efforts, and Japan and South Korea are also saying that Taiwan is ahead of them, and we help relevant industries prosper at the same time by establishing this industry. Offshore wind power in April, there will be a new project completed. This is a project from one of the 5 major wind power suppliers around the world. And in terms of turbine blades, which are 180 meters tall, these can be manufactured in Taiwan. And as for nacelle installation, Siemens and Vista, these 2 system companies are now having presence in Taiwan. And Siemens Gamesa has said that Taiwan has become their manufacturing center in Asia in terms of turbine installation. So we can see that while working on energy transition, new industries can prosper at the same time. So, what do you feel about all of these? Young people want to jump into this industry and prosper. And Mr. Lai from Century Wind Turbine told me that they invested in a school in Taoyuan and established a training department, a training center, teaching relevant skills and techniques to young people. So young people now see hope in this industry in Taiwan and want to participate. We just said that energy transition needs to continue and industry transformation needs to accelerate as well. What does that mean? Well, in Taiwan, We are now entering digital transformation with our IT industries, and American enterprises invited us to join e-commerce. So our supply chain, first, second, third tiers, have all been digitized, which has helped Taiwan's IT industry prosper around the world. And now, in addition to Taiwan's IT sector, we need to introduce Industry 4.0 into other industries. Yesterday afternoon, I went to Yoda to have a look at their digital transformation and net zero transformation results. In their sites in Taichung, in central Taiwan, they were demoing, and I looked at the demo, and after that, I made a phone call to Dr. Lai, saying that you need to come here and have a look. You need to have a look at the digital transformation and net zero transformation that are taking place here. So, in terms of such transformations, the government and the financial industry will also support SMEs. The Ministry of Economic Affairs are now organizing a series of orientations for CEOs. And so in central Taiwan, I brought our managers to participate in such orientation sessions, because when our clients face transformation pressure, we have to provide funding support to them. And in Taipei, in Nangang, and in Kaohsiung this Friday, there will also be such orientations, and our CEO will give a presentation so that the CEOs in the audience will feel the resonance, because when a CEO tells something to them, they feel the resonance. Otherwise, they would feel that there's no money for ESG. So enterprises are taking actions, and the government are providing supporting measures. We can, by doing so, turning crises into opportunities. This is what we did with our IT industry, and we can do the same in this sector. Yesterday, the Danish enterprise transferred the seabed cable technologies to Taiwan, and because they feel that they are confident about the development in Taiwan. Taiwan used to lack such technology. When I was the deputy minister, I helped with this area in Kaohsiung, and they introduced the Danish technologies of seabed cables. And so they came to Taiwan, and they first established presence in Taiwan before expanding to other markets. I just said that we need to accelerate our industry transformation, and we also need to launch our lifestyle transformation. We need to change our behavior. You need to drive less and take public transportation more. For example, social transformation needs to be just. What do I mean by that?
Well, some people are saying that a transition to electric vehicles will put a lot of people out of jobs. This is why we also have to think about people who may be left behind during this transformation. So, for example, how you help people who work on traditional cars to switch to this industry. We can organize sessions for them, free training for them. And when these people receive certificates, we can also provide subsidies, and including in the form of a free electric scooter. So this is how we mobilize people. Our legislature in 2022 also amended our law, and the 2050 net zero emissions goal is now part of the regulation. So the government is already working on various measures and strategies. Currently, we already have a roadmap in place. I mentioned earlier that Taiwan is an export-oriented economy. Our industries are moving towards 100% renewable energy in order to move towards the net zero emissions goal. And our companies also have to comply with all these rules in order to keep their customers. Now, if companies do not focus on their ESG practice, then they risk losing their customers. Vice Chairperson Jin Chu also mentioned earlier that a poor ESG practice would mean that companies will find it difficult to have access to funding. Now, without funding, of course, companies cannot grow. If a country does not focus on ESG, then the country will also lose its economic competitiveness. So faced with the fierce competition from around the world, what we have to do is that we have to transform ourselves. We have to work on green innovation in order to achieve net zero. Now, in today's forum, we have to look forward and try to find new opportunities to transform. It's difficult to achieve net zero. But whenever there are challenges, there are also opportunities. So, of course, I myself is also now a member of the financial industry. We can all work together to help other sectors move towards the net zero goal. We can help them cut carbon emissions and eventually achieve zero emissions. And this will help Taiwan enhance its competitiveness. And this will also make Taiwan prosper. Lastly, I wish this forum a great success, and I also wish you all the best. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chairman. Please stay on stage. At this momentous occasion, I'd like to invite all our guests to join us for a group photo. First of all, please welcome Vice Chairperson Jin Chu from the Financial Supervisory Commission. Chief Strategy Officer Liao Yingzhi from Chiles Holding. Senior Vice President Peng Guogui from Shanghai Commercial and Savings Bank. Executive Vice President Kelvin Liao from Bank Sinopac. And from the Taipei Computer Association, Mr. Huang. And from our organizers, Vice President Deng Meihua from USTV, as well as CEO Liang Baohua from USTV Financial R&D Foundation. Let's look at the camera. Anyone who would like to take more photos? Thank you. Please be seated. Right. So now we'll also take a larger group photo with the audience members present today. So please, we're going to take a very large group photo. Again, you can remove your masks for the photo. Okay, get ready. Let's take a look at the camera. Here we go. One more photo. Right, our cameraman will also take a few photos. Thumbs up.
谢谢各位。
Thank you very much.
再麻烦各位帮我们戴上口罩。
Okay, now please put your masks back on. In response to the 2050 net zero carbon emission target, the Financial Supervisory Commission launched a Green Finance Action Plan 3.0 last year, highlighting the importance of green finance in the future. And in the 2023 Sustainability Yearbook, Chinese Holding ranked in the top 10 of the global diversified financial services and capital markets industry. So I'll now invite Chief Strategy Officer Kelvin Liao Yingzhi from Chinese Holding to share his insights on green finance. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I'm very delighted to have the opportunity to share with you our company's strategy and some of our success stories. First of all, I'd like to give you a very brief overview of what our company has been doing in the last 20-30 years. So you see that we were founded in 1977. At the time, we focused on leasing and payment by installments. And later on, we also added more businesses. So now we also provide leasing services to individuals and so on. And in 2006, we launched a car leasing service. So this could be a long lease for companies or a short lease for individuals. And we also have different project financing services, financing for aircraft, financing for vehicles, and so on. In 2010, we made a foray into the green energy industry. So we now also provide a variety of services. And in 2011, we launched insurance policies for companies and individuals. And here at the lower right-hand side, you see that we actually provide funding for PV companies as well. And in 2000, for individuals, we provide payment by installment services. And we now also have a car financing business. And in 2018, we also delved into digital transformation and financial inclusion. So in today's presentation, I'm going to focus on what we do in order to achieve sustainable development. Of course, a company has to maximize shareholder value. And if you want to do that, the company has to be sustainable. This is why we have to think about our business strategies. And we also have to think about the external environment. And the external environment has several dimensions, including a social dimension. And this is why we have to be able to grow sustainably. Now, within the company, I mentioned earlier that we need to have our own strategy, but we also have to take into account the social environment and the natural environment. And our strategy has to be able to reflect all that. So that means that we are not only focusing on our own products and services or about expanding the markets. Instead, we also have to take into account how we can contribute to the sustainable development of the whole environment and society. So, as you see on the slide, we have to start from ourselves. Every year, we cut our resource consumption, and we also have to enhance our corporate governance, and this can be reflected in our board of directors running and legal compliance. And we are also introducing new systems into our own company. In terms of risk management, we have to think about climate change and information security. For us to play a role in influencing others, we have to do more in order to promote financial inclusion. So we work with financial industries, financial institutions, and we also serve small and medium-sized enterprises. And we are also working with the partners within the supply chain so that we can all work together to cut carbon emissions and achieve net zero eventually. In terms of social inclusion, all our employees participate in various welfare campaigns. And on the right-hand side, this is about energy transformation, energy transition. So we provide funding to various sectors, and we also operate certain facilities. We generate our own energy, and we sell energy. And recently, we also started to store the energy. And we are also now working on the circular economy model. Once a PV panel reaches end of life, we have to recycle such panels in order to avoid damaging the environment. And here at the bottom, you can also see various United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and we work very hard to achieve these goals. And on this slide, you can see that we've been recognized internationally by many different organizations. And to talk about our influence in the sustainable development area, we can look at three different areas. The first one is sustainable finance. We do not take deposits, so the source of funding for us is financial institutions and the general public. We work with many research institutions and also other organizations. Now we issue green bonds. We also work with banks to issue sustainability index-linked commercial papers and loans. And we also require our PV suppliers to sign a pledge to commit themselves to sustainable development. So this is how we work with our supply chain partners. And based on our own experience, in the early days, we were already working with green energy providers. We built our own rooftop PV panels. We also have been investing in various power plants. Last year, we also provided green energy to companies. So right here, you see that in the green energy industry, we've been a part of the various areas. So from energy saving to energy generation, energy storage, and so on, we've been part of the whole process. So on this slide, you see our footprint throughout this value chain. On this page, you see data regarding our PV installed capacity. We already have more than 3,600 power generating units. Most of them are rooftop PV panels. And we generate 1.38 billion kilowatt hours of electricity. Our cumulative capacity is 1.1 gigawatts. Previously, Chairman Shen mentioned the capacity of the coal-fired power plant in Taichung, but we now already have a bigger capacity than the power plant in Taichung, and we can provide electricity for 395,000 households for a year, and we can cut carbon emissions by 700,000 tons, and we can also generate more energy going forward. In terms of green energy, we've already released 275 million kilowatt hours to big companies, including Zhonghua Telecom. In terms of financial inclusion, our company has a history of more than 40 years, and we've served over 300,000 SMEs and more than 2 million individuals. So currently, over 1/3 of listed companies in Taiwan are or have been our customers. And we are also now providing personal loans in order to enhance financial inclusion. And we now also use digital technology to provide various products. One of the products is Zingala, which is a payment by installment tool, and we have more than 1 million members. Now, we have a vehicle leasing service, and many of our customers are in the transportation sector, but they face the problem of asymmetrical information. And sometimes they also have the problem that their return trip is actually empty. So we've developed a mobile phone app and an ecosystem to create a return trip truck appointment system. And this will also help enhance the efficiency in this industry. In addition, SMEs can also benefit from this service because they now have access to cheaper transportation services. Now, for SMEs, we also provide a tool for them, which is a accounts receivable financing tool. And for small loans, especially for people who have scooters, we now also have a service that can very quickly provide small loans for people who have a scooter or want to buy a scooter. And in terms of social welfare, we've always been supporting SMEs, and we've been working with the Taiwan Institute of Economic Research for more than 10 years. And the research results have been printed and published as books. So you can see that we have 4 volumes of the Taiwan SME's growth story. So the first one was about the growth, the second one was transformation, the third one was internationalization, and the 4th volume was about strategy and alliance. And for more than 10 years, we've been organizing a SME forum. So we work with the Ministry of Economics and also the SME Association of Taiwan. We invite experts and leaders to share their insights and stories to help other SMEs enhance their management. In terms of social welfare, we have our own foundation, and we also have a badminton team. And our team has been doing very well in international competitions. And in our own company, our employees are also working as volunteers. We, in fact, provide 2 days leave for our employees if they want to work as volunteers elsewhere. So that concludes my presentation. In terms of sustainable development, what we have to do is that we want to achieve social, environmental, and corporate sustainability. And we'll continue to work with others to maximize share value holder. But we also have to try to influence other companies and also other sectors. Our own employees and our own supply chain partners are also working with us. I think by doing this, we can have a positive influence. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Liao. Now, we see that in 2021, Shanghai Commercial and Savings Bank received the MSCI ESG A rating and the Gold Award for corporate sustainability reporting from TCSA. Additionally, the bank signed a green finance strategic alliance with its counterparts in Shanghai and Hong Kong to cooperate in promoting green finance and continually increase the proportion of green finance business. Now, I'd like to invite Senior Vice President Peng from Shanghai Commercial and Savings Bank to share his thoughts. Please welcome Mr. Peng. Thank you, the moderator. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, present and online, good morning. I'm honored to represent Shanghai Commercial and Savings Bank to participate in Green Energy New Economic Impetus Forum. This is my topic today. I'm going to tell you the implementation status of our bank. This is my agenda. I will first talk about Taiwan's 2050 net zero pathway and also corporate governance 3.0, sustainable development blueprint, and green finance action plan. And finally, how do we as banks promote sustainable transformation and development? We know that in January this year, WEF published 2023 Global Risk Reports, saying that over the next 10 years, there will be 10 major risks, and 6 out of them are related to climate, including climate change mitigation failure, climate change adaptation failure, natural disasters, etc. So the top 4 are all climate related. This shows that climate issues have become major issues worldwide, and we need to pay attention to such urgency. According to this NPO, international NPO, which tracks net zero implementation status. So according to their 2022 inventory result, there are 1,180 entities around the world that have announced 2050 net zero emission goals. And these include 128 countries and territories, which cover 80% of the world population, and 83% of global emissions, and 91% of global GDP. So these 128 countries are representative, and I'm sure that in the future there will be more countries, and Taiwan is part of them. Last year, in March, National Development Council in Taiwan formulated a net zero emission pathway with energy transition, industry transition, lifestyle, and society transformations as the 4 strategies. And there are 2 pillars, technology and laws and regulations. And in January, we just passed the Climate Change Response Act, and this shows that we are going to target the major emitters. In Taiwan, we will start to tax them with carbon tax. And one important thing is green finance, as you can see on the slide. So 2050, 12 major strategies. As you can see, one of them is green finance, and the financial industry plays a very important role. And in terms of green finance, basically we hope to use financial power to direct such transformation. And it is hoped that the financial industry can provide funding or products or negotiate with their clients to work together with their clients to promote sustainable development. The Financial Supervisory Commission last year also put forward a pathway asking publicly listed companies to disclose an inventory greenhouse gas emissions and relevant verifications. This is something that these are things that our government has done in terms of net zero emission. And this slide is about the banking sector, corporate governance 3.0. It was put forward in August 2020, hoping that between 2021 and 2023, through these 5 major pillars, including BOD, strengthening board duties and deepening corporate sustainable governance culture and providing diversified products, and strengthening communication with stakeholders and enhancing information transparency and advancing international norms. So through these 5 pillars, the government hopes to promote sustainable development in the banking sector. And last year in September, the FSC put forward Green Finance Action Plan 3.0. So there's 1 mission, 3 core strategies, and the vision is to integrate financial resources and to support net zero transformation. 3 strategies include cross-domain cooperation, disclosure of carbon emission information, and also to integrate data in order to strengthen risk mitigation and adaptation. So the 5 directions, as you can see on the slide, include deployment, funding, data, and empowerment and ecosystem. And the content is at the bottom of the slide. We hope that financial institutions can strengthen risk management. And in terms of funding, the FSC and relevant government agencies have established a reference index. So for The economic activities that comply with such index, they are considered sustainable activities, and the funding can be provided for such economic activities. This is to avoid greenwashing, so that sustainable activities can be clearly defined and identified. And as for data, this is to promote ESG information disclosure and integration. As for empowerment, we want to accelerate the training of green finance talent. And as for ecosystem, it is hoped that large enterprises can guide and lead small ones to work on sustainable development. These are the important content of the action plan, and there are 26 measures in total. It is hoped that financial institutions can guide their clients and the entire industries towards low carbon and energy transition. Last but not least, I want to tell you our approaches in our bank. First of all, we complete our sustainable development organization structure. We establish a commission. This is something that goes across department. This cannot be done by one single department. So under this commission, there are 6 functional groups. As you can see, responsible finance, environmental sustainability, social welfare, client benefits, employees care, and corporate governance. And in terms of climate change response, we have also established a working group on TCA. In addition to promote green finance, we have also established a working group. And in each regional center, there's a leader to promote green finance in that specific region. In addition, at the headquarters, we have a dedicated unit for sustainable development. This is the role that I am playing in our bank, which is to communicate and integrate across different departments. In terms of sustainable development, banks have to do a lot of things, both internally and externally. Internally, we have 10 aspects, as you can see. For example, energy management. Last year, we passed greenhouse gas emission inventory and human resource ISO certification. And we have a carbon reduction goal that is specific. As for renewable energy, last year we started to use green electricity, and we start to also generate power by installing PV panels ourselves. As for environmental management, we have ISO certifications, as you can see, and there are also green building certificates and labels, and there's also water resource management. We continue to work on these different aspects. These are internal things that banks need to do in order to reduce carbon emissions. As for externally, how do we promote sustainable finance in lending? For example, we comply with principles for responsible banking, Equator principles, which we have signed, and we have formulated policy for responsible lending, and we provide sustainability-linked loans for clients. This is an incentive for clients to also reduce carbon emissions. In addition, we provide green loans for our clients. As for investment, we follow principles for responsible investment, and we formulate policy for responsible investment and stewardship principles, and we actively implement ESG-related principles. Every year, we hope that such investment should grow by 15%, which is higher than our other businesses. And every year, we enhance the share of green investment and funding. There is also sustainable wealth management, sustainable savings. Recently, through the Ministry of Finance, we sponsor Wild Birds Association in Taiwan. And recently, we put forward a Love the Earth project. So if clients save money in our bank, then we donate. And for now, the threshold is 300,000 NT dollars. If the threshold is achieved, we donate money to the 2 wild bird associations in Taiwan so that they can help protect wild birds in southern Taiwan. This is about climate governance. The 4 TCFD governance cores, governance, strategies, risk management. With these aspects, we strengthen our climate change management. And we also joined Science-Based Targets Initiative and Partnership for Carbon Accounting Financials. These two are for verifying clients' carbon emissions, because right now such information is difficult to obtain. So we need to use scientific methods and more efficient approaches to calculate the carbon emissions of lending and investment projects. And with these numbers, then we can use such numbers to set up carbon reduction goals and implementation strategies and plans. So there are many things that the banking industry can do, but there are great challenges ahead. The banking industry can contribute to social welfare, and we have our social responsibilities. We need to follow government policies to promote sustainable development. And this concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pong. Next up, in recent years, Bank Sinopac has introduced numerous innovative and diversified green energy services, focusing on green energy projects and initiating green financial services in promising emerging industries. They have also created a Green Power Trading Trust platform, which promotes a green power trading network. So, our next speaker is Executive Vice President Kelvin Liao from Bank Sinopac. Please welcome him. Thank you. First of all, I want to thank the organizers for inviting me to join this forum so that I can share with you what our bank has been doing to promote green finance. As the previous speakers have said, whether we are talking about ESG or sustainability, in fact, these are global challenges, so the challenges are not unique to Taiwan. Now, and also as we heard previously, the financial industry itself does not have a lot of direct carbon emissions, but the assets of our customers can be affected by climate change, and our customers' operations can be in jeopardy because they cannot comply with international regulations. And of course, these in turn will create risks for banks. This is why the financial industry should also help others. It's relatively easy for us to achieve net zero, but we also have to help our customers to be on the right track, and that's our responsibility. So in my presentation, I'll talk about two issues. In the first part, I'll talk about what our bank has been doing to promote green finance, and then I'll also share with you our bank's net zero blueprint. As I mentioned earlier, we want to achieve net zero and sustainability, and it's a lengthy process. So, according to the current plan, by 2030, the government, the private sector, and society have to work together. And if we want to achieve net zero, then we also need to use a lot of innovative technology. So, in fact, there's a challenge as well. Well, let's say money is not everything, but without money, you cannot do anything. So, we want to cut carbon emissions. We want to save energy. Now, previously, we could just use energy and so on, and we didn't think about the externalities. But now, you also have to price in the externalities, and that means higher costs. Now, if it's about money, then the financial industry obviously plays an important role. This is why we are a key piece in this jigsaw puzzle. Now, this key piece is green finance. With this piece, then the entire puzzle can be completed and we can move towards net zero emissions. Previously, our bank has also been working on many projects. We hope to help our customers to embark on the journey to achieve net zero. So, for example, we actually had the first green building urban renewal syndicated loan project. And our previous speaker, the first speaker from Chinese, they built their own power plants, but we provide funding to such projects. So currently, our installed capacity is about 2.8 gigawatts, and it'll exceed 3 gigawatts very soon. So that's bigger than the Taichung coal-fired power plant. And of course, energy storage is important as well. So we also ran the first energy storage syndicated loan project. And the speaker from Chinese also mentioned that they are working in this field, and we provide support to Chinese as well. I mentioned that the financial industry itself doesn't emit a lot of carbon emissions, but we also should cut our own carbon emissions as well. So now we have digital operations. It's completely paperless. That means that we now use 5 million less sheets of paper, and that's a carbon reduction of 90 tons. And we also built a green energy power plant information management system, which can be used by our customers as well. I'll also talk about the green energy trading trust system. This is how we facilitate green energy trading. And we want to work with our partners to cut emissions. And this is why we also have a one-stop service window for our partners to take inventory of their carbon emissions. Now I want to very quickly go over our bank's net zero blueprint. Bank Sinobank has been doing a lot, but that's just the first step. Now, it's a long road up until 2050, so along the way, we have to keep making improvements, we also have to keep thinking about how we can work with our customers better to achieve net zero. So these are some of the actions that we'll take. We are going to introduce more value-added services to help our customers. Secondly, I mentioned renewable energy. And so in addition to PV, Mr. Liao from Chinese also mentioned other types of power generation. Could be small-scale hydropower and geothermal projects and so on. And we are also working on energy trading. TSMC already bought 80% of the green energy generated in Taiwan, but there are also many other companies who need to have access to green energy. So this is our mission. And we also have an advantage in this area. Now, we provide funding to about 1/3 of PV providers in Taiwan. So we already have this very big customer base, and that's our advantage. And we can be a go-between that brings together PV providers and companies that need green energy. And also, it's very important to verify a company's carbon footprint, and that's the very first step for a company to find out about its carbon footprint and then cut carbon emissions. So I'll next go over all these 4 areas. The value-added services include sustainability-linked loans and also green bonds and so on. Now, if you check a textbook, what is a bank? A bank is an intermediary. Some people have excess fund, and we direct the fund to people who need fund. So deposits and lending are the core operations of a bank, the core business of a bank. Now, by providing these services, we can inject funding into companies that want to do more to achieve sustainability. Now, many financial institutions are, of course, providing such services as well. Another type of value-added service that we can provide is that, as I mentioned earlier, we serve a lot of PV providers. And the chairman of the Taiwan Financial Holding Company also talked about PV. Now, in 2050, the installed capacity of PV have to reach 20 gigawatts, and then 1.5 gigawatt will be added every year. So we already have a database, and with this database, we can help customers as they build their facilities. Now, of course, there are other types of renewable energy as well. So geothermal and small-scale hydropower are the next promising areas. In fact, in Taiwan, geothermal power generation amounts to about 2.8 gigawatts, and small hydropower plants also can amount to around the same capacity. Now, what are the advantages of these 2 sources? Now, their advantage is that they can work 24/7. Now, wind power, sometimes wind is very strong, sometimes wind is very weak. So that means that in summer, wind power farms may see their generation drop significantly. So that's a problem. And I know that our state utility company is worried about this fluctuation. Now, sometimes people use a lot of power, but certain renewable energy sources may not be able to cover that. But geothermal and small-scale hydropower plants don't have this problem of very big fluctuations. Now, I already said that Taiwanese companies have to comply with the requirements of their international customers, so they need green energy. And we hope that this energy market can be more liberalized. Now, it used to be that only the state-run Taipower company could provide electricity, but now we also have independent power plants. But the thing is, there's an information asymmetry. And this is why a bank like us can be a trustworthy intermediary. We have a trust trading platform so that people who provide electricity and people who need electricity can trade on this platform. And also, there are companies that are thinking about whether they should build their own power generation facilities. And now we are part of a financial holding company, so we not only have a bank, we also have a securities company and so on. This is why we can provide professional consulting services to our customers. If our customers want to build their own power plants, we can provide advice. Now, in the last area, carbon footprint verification, last year we started to work with 2 companies. Now, every company has to classify their emissions in 3 scopes, scope 1, 2, and 3. And scope 3 emissions actually account for 70% of their emissions. And scope 3 is about the emissions along the supply chain. So we've been working with these companies to help them identify the sources of emissions. Now, after the carbon footprint verification, the next step is to try to mitigate emissions. So in this area, we also work with other professional institutions in order to provide assistance to our customers. Now, Sinopec hopes to reach net zero in 2030 for us. But of course, we also have a higher goal for 2050. Now, we've started to do a lot. It's not yet perfect, but we do our best to cut carbon emissions, because once the carbon is emitted into the atmosphere, then it's very difficult to capture it. And we hope to be able to help our customers to have a more successful journey along this way. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Liao. One sentence from you really resonated with me. Without money, we cannot do anything. So the financial industry includes investment and funding, which play a very important role in sustainable development. Now, after listening to the 3 speakers, I'm sure everyone is eager for more. Don't worry, we have an exciting Green Finance Summit coming up. In the morning, we will talk about the financial industry and what kind of a role the financial industry can play. So let me remind you that in the afternoon, we have another session, which is from the perspective of the industry. So you're welcome to stay for the afternoon session as well. Now we are starting our Green Finance Summit. I'd like to invite Chief Strategy Officer Liao Yingzhi from Chinese Holding, Senior Vice President Hong Guogui from Shanghai Commercial and Savings Bank, Executive Vice President Kelvin Liao from Bank Sinopac, and CEO Liang Baohua from USTV Financial R&D Foundation to come up to the stage. And also Nina Chu, anchor from USTV. First of all, I'd like to invite all of you to come to the stage for a group photo. Please wave to the camera. Please take your seat, and now I'm going to give the microphone to Nina Chu, who is going to moderate the summit. Thank you, everyone, Mr. Liao, Mr. Peng, and CEO Baohua. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Fang Jun. Nina, I'm glad to take this opportunity
绿色转型的新面貌来跟大家做个分享。我们刚刚听到所谓的这个近邻转型的浪潮全球化。
Net zero wave around the world. This is a global trend. And in the industries, this is also an important topic to discuss. Many people still think that this belongs only to the scope of the Environmental Protection Agency. But in Taiwan, the Financial Supervisory Commission has been very active. If we remember, starting from 2017, the Green Finance Action Plan, version 1, version 2, and last year, 3.0, the spirit is that the entire financial industry can make good use of the power of financing to help enterprises transform and encourage everyone to participate in this trend. I'm glad that all the industries present today can be considered as making progress in green finance. So they are our role models. I'd like to take this opportunity to share experience with other enterprises. First of all, I'd like to ask Mr. Liao from Chinese Holdings. We know that your company is leading in your industry, and you are also one of the largest investors in solar power plants in Taiwan. So I want to know, in terms of short, mid, and long-term goals, what are your goals in Chinese? Well, in the short term, we want to continue with our energy industry strategies, including, for example, solar investment that we are familiar with. We want to continue with different models, ground mount up and roof solar panels. We want to continue to accumulate our experience, hoping to become really a leader in this industry, and also the design of power plants, the construction, the operation. We want to adopt higher standards than peer enterprises. We hope that over the next 20 to 25 years operation, we can continue to have good performance, so that for ourselves, for electricity consumers, and also for leasers, there can be a win-win situation. Second, in terms of energy storage, this is also very important for our policy, because if the efficiency can increase, then power generation can be less. This is more efficient for the entire society. Taiwan is still in an early phase in this regard. We want to introduce better technologies and to more actively develop different spaces so that we can invest in energy storage businesses which can play a more effective role in Taiwan's energy transition. So we hope to have diverse green energy developments such as the hydro power, geothermal, and tidal energies that I talked about, were just talked about. We will cooperate with the industry and the academia, hoping that in terms of energy transition strategies, there can be long-term thinking with clearer strategies. Mr. Liao, I think everyone has probably the same question. I want to ask you, we are familiar with Chinese as a funding provider, but we know that from financing to energy saving and now to operation of solar power plants. I think this process is very interesting. So I want to ask you, what have been your difficulties and challenges? Well, at the beginning, we provide these services with energy saving companies, but those companies are of a smaller scale, and the technologies provided and the efficiency were difficult, so the clients were not very confident at the time. When Taiwan started to promote solar energy, we also helped some solar energy companies with funding, with our financing. We studied their risks in an in-depth way so that we got familiar with the solar technologies, and we gained expert knowledge in this process. And we found that at the time, if we look at the scale of the solar industry in Taiwan, it was difficult for them to continue to operate over 20 to 30 years with their smaller scale. But it was important for the operators to have enough resources at the time. So at the time, we thought that if we could invest and operate by ourselves, then we can allay such concerns and we would be able to operate in a sustainable way so that the sites wouldn't be wasted with the risk of those companies unable to continue to operate. But we didn't realize that the speed later became much faster than we had originally expected. I'd like to really thank Sinopec and Shanghai Bank for your support. So it seems that there's a relationship between clients and finance providers. I know that Chinese is also quite big in for example, irrigation and small hydropower. So in Taiwan, it's quite challenging to find development sites because Taiwan is relatively small. So Chinese has really made a lot of efforts in implementing the social transformation and lifestyle transformation formulated by National Development Council. I know that everyone here pays attention to green finance and energy transition. Our friends online on the English channel, there are 2,000 people watching on the English channel, and there's 1,500 people watching the Chinese version. So everyone wants to know the supply chain and how we can together join this green transformation pathway. Now, I'd like to ask Mr. Peng from Shanghai Commercial and Savings Bank. You also has made great strides in promoting green finance, winning numerous awards. So I'd like to ask you about the bank's efforts in promoting green finance. What are your strategies? Hello, everyone. Thank you, Ms. Moderator, and thank you everyone present on site and online. In terms of the strategies of ESG strategies in Shanghai Commercial and Savings Bank, we follow government policies and international trends. We hope to guide our clients to implement ESG and sustainable development. And in terms of our implementation, first of all, we want to work on net zero emissions by ourselves. And more importantly, we want to also work on that with our clients of lending and investment. If we look at carbon emission in financial industry, it only accounts for 5% of all the carbon emissions. Emissions come from our clients, mainly our lending and investment clients. So we need to think about how we can use our influence to direct our clients. And there are a few directions. First of all, we can use our products and services and provide them for our clients. For example, equipment upgrading loans. As long as clients can enhance their energy efficiency, or as long as they can adopt circular economy or to reduce pollution, then they will be able to get as much as 400 million loans. Sometimes it can achieve as high as 1 billion NT dollars loan. And there's interest rate subsidy from National Development Council. These are very good financial products. In addition to these products, what we can do in addition is just as what Ms. Cho said, sustainability-linked loans. Such loans are very flexible as long as there's something that clients can do in terms of ESG indicators. Then we can reduce interest rates, or we can increase the quota, or we can have a longer loan term as incentives for our clients. This is the second part. The third part is to negotiate with clients. First of all, we need to understand the client's carbon emission situation, understanding the major sources of their carbon emissions, and then we study with the client. Sometimes we invite experts to participate in such study, trying to figure out how the client can reduce their carbon emission. When necessary, we can provide different types of support, such as experts or financing. Only through these approaches we can work together with our clients on sustainable development.
So can I say this? So first of all, you help customers to take inventory of their carbon emissions. It's like if you want to lose weight, of course, first of all, you have to weigh yourself. You have to know what your current body weight is. And by the same token, you have to know what is your biggest emissions sources. So you take inventory of scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions. And if your customers want to upgrade their equipment and so on, and you can provide funding. So can I say so? That's what you do, right? Okay, understood. Now, at Bank Sino-Pac, we know that in the ESG, Bank Sino-Pac has been doing a lot under the E and S pillars. So I'd like to ask Mr. Liao, how do you start from yourselves and how you use funding to help your supply chain partners? I think just like Mr. Peng said, now, in fact, our customers' carbon emissions are about 200 to 300 times that of our own emissions. So it's very important for us to help our customers. That's why we have to engage with them. And the Financial Supervisory Commission has been asking us to continue to work on this area. Now, of course, we have to help our customers cut carbon emissions. And of course, we have to communicate with our customers first to let them know that they have to cut carbon emissions. Otherwise, they will have difficulty accessing funding. You cannot just suddenly jump on them and say that, as you are not doing well in carbon reduction, then we are not going to provide funding. Of course, big companies understand that they have to cut emissions. And as Vice Chairperson Chiu mentioned earlier, big companies all know about these standards now. But SMEs still have a very fuzzy idea of what is required of them. So we have to engage with our customers, and we also have to protect our customers. And this is why we have to work with our customers to talk to them about how to take inventory of our emissions. And this way, they can be prepared when new regulations take effect, because they need to be able to adapt to the new environment. So it's about communication and awareness. Taiwan, I guess traditionally you could say that many companies are more concerned about costs. But when you ask them to cut carbon emissions, very often that means extra costs, and they may be worried that they could lose their competitiveness. But here I'd like to share with you a piece of information that I have. Last year, Apple, in fact, started to get rid of some supply chain companies. And the reason is that they did not do enough to cut their carbon emissions. So that means that if you do not reduce your emissions, you'll in fact lose your own customers, you'll lose business. So this is not just about costs. You have to do more. And in our bank, we try to provide as much information as possible. In our bank, of course, we can also use different tools. If you have good performance, then we can also provide better interest rates. Here, I'd like to echo what you just said. Now, what is happening now is that all these externalities have to be priced in. In the past, companies didn't have to think about all these externalities when they consumed energy, so they were able to benefit from the relatively cheaper electricity rate in Taiwan. But now, externalities have to be priced in. So many companies are facing this challenge. Now, my next question is for CEO Liang Baohua. I understand that your foundation has a lot of ESG reports, and our TV, USTV, also has a lot of reports in this area. So, what do you think we what do you think we can do to try to promote this? Well, I remember that when I was at school, there was a portrait of our national founder, Dr. Sun Yat-sen, and there was his famous slogan, which is that we still have to work on revolution. And that's what I think we have to do. Now, Chairman Shen used to be the Vice Premier of Taiwan. So he said in the opening remarks that in our lifestyle, we'll also have to change. But I feel that the general public still haven't come to terms with this idea. We understand that we have to shift to electric vehicles. But let's say I now drive an internal combustion engine cars. So I'm not going to just ditch my car right now. So it's a very pragmatic choice. We are now just beginning to embark on the a journey of net zero. We have to first reduce carbon emissions, and then gradually we can move to net zero. It's a very lengthy journey. The financial industry has been doing very well already. So the financial industry is like a very important driver that is pushing all these other sectors forward. But over 99% of the companies in Taiwan are SMEs. We have about 1,800 listed companies, and all these listed companies can require their supply chain partners to cut carbon emissions. So they are Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 suppliers. But at the bottom, there are many small companies that have razor-thin margin. Now, if you go to Changhua in central Taiwan, there are very small companies located just literally on the farms. So it's very difficult for them to cut carbon emissions. Now, Chairman Shen also talked about the development of the offshore wind industry in Taiwan. He talked about this in his opening remarks. But again, this is just the beginning. There are still a lot of things to do. And the financial industry also has to think about the challenge of extreme weather. For example, now in July 2021, within 3 days in Henan in China, within 3 days, the rainfall, I think, was about 620 milliliters. That means that it was a whole year of rainfall within 3 days, and the whole town was inundated. Now, this is extreme weather, and this creates risks for the financial industry as well. Another example I want to share with you is, I think, from the end of last year in North America, around Christmas time, there was severe snowstorms and temperatures dropped to minus 40 degrees Celsius, and all businesses shut down. So this was a tremendous economic loss. And in turn, this can also affect banks. In this globalized world, no one is free from all these risks. So we're going to see more and more these extreme weather events. If we don't cut carbon emissions, then I think that all these risks will just intensify. So we've already made some gains, but we cannot be complacent. We have to work harder. Thank you. We were talking about ESG and carbon reduction, and they seem to be something quite distant before. But now, I believe that carbon reduction should be part of the corporate governance as well. Okay, so now in Taiwan, we are also trying to develop more energy sources, and it's a long journey. Now, Chinese provides capital, and you also operate your own PV farms. So, Mr. Liao, according to the Ministry of Economics, in Taiwan, PV installation capacity has to reach 20 gigawatt by 2025. So that means that you need to have PV panels that can cover the area equivalent of all of Taipei. Where do you find the land? Well, it's indeed a challenge. So we can use the roofs of office buildings and also factories, but of course we can also use fish farms and so on, and then we should also use residential buildings. Now, in the UK, they already have a very clear policy. When a new residential building is being built, then the developers also have to think about how to integrate PV panels onto the rooftops. Now, as you said earlier, now in Taiwan, it's very difficult to find empty land. That's why you have to be able to use existing buildings and also rooftops. But of course, there are other challenges as well. We have to think about whether the older buildings are structurally sound enough to withstand the weight of the PV panels, because when they were built, PV panels were not yet something that I have to think about. Now, we can have big PV panels, but if it's a residential building, then the panels will be a lot smaller. So currently, we've been looking at how to promote the installation of PV panels on the rooftops of residential buildings, and we hope to be able to find good technology and a good model for households to be able to generate their own power. And I believe that this will help. But of course, we also need policy support, and also we need to have a good grid in order to support that. If you have all these new PV panels, then you need to have a robust grid system. So we need the cooperation of different sides.
Yeah, here we also like to call for this. This is a goal that we will have to work towards in the future, rooftop panels. And as for fishery hybrid systems, you are already working on it. So we want to generate power, but at the same time, the fishery industry needs to be taken care of. It's not possible to rely totally on imports. So what are some environmental constraints in this regard, and maybe it will be beneficial to the fishery industry? Well, it takes 20, 25, or 30 years in order to make economic sense for a solar power plant. So such coexistence between fishery and solar panels also needs to last for at least 20 years. So when we start to establish such fishery solar hybrid systems, it's important to think about sustainable operation. There are a few factors. First of all, people in this industry, can they work for another 25 years? And second, the fishery industry, the aquaculture industry in Taiwan in the past has changed. The landscape of this industry has changed a lot due to many factors, including climate change. So how can we design such aqua farms so that they can last for 20 to 30 years? This is also very important. The third is the farming efficiency with digital monitoring and different digital technologies, and also from culturing to farming, there can be all sorts of technologies that can be introduced so that the industry enjoys higher and higher efficiency. We are not experts in aquaculture, but we have cooperated with many teams throughout Taiwan. If we obtain land for such hybrid systems, then we work with professional teams to design personnel, technologies, environmental improvement in order to maximize the environmental benefits so that we benefit and the fishery industry benefits as well. Sometimes there are open air farms which we help transform into an indoor farm, which enhances efficiency. So we have to jump out of the conventional box. It's not just about putting panels onto an aqua farm. that doesn't work all the time, and it's not possible to last for 20 to 25 years operation with our goals achieved. Well, sure, this is not easy indeed. I'm sure that the government, the Energy Bureau, and the Agriculture Council, the communication requires time and efforts. Well, just as you said, sometimes you direct invest as long as there are opportunities. So from funding to the implementation, it requires time as well. I want to ask you, Mr. Peng from Shanghai Commercial and Savings Bank, in your presentation, you said that in terms of green business, you want to grow by 15% annually. So what is the feedback received from your employees and from your clients? Is the feedback positive? Well, every year we exceed the goal that we had set up, actually, because with the leadership of our general manager, we have a working group that sets up monthly KPIs, and in our every regional center, there's a green finance leader, which shoulders a lot of pressure every month. The leader has to report on the results. And last year, the growth was 15 to 20%, which exceeded our goal set up. I think that this is a direction that the banking industry needs to walk on. This will be a major driver for our industry in the future. The banking sector regularly needs to adjust our industry strategies. For the industries that are promising, they need to be included into our strategies. So we are optimistic about such growth, and we set up a growth target every year, and the share represented in our business is going up every year as well. Okay, so from your perspective, as you said, there are ESG-linked loans. So if a client does ESG well, it's easier for them to receive better interest rates, or you may directly invest in them. So what is the feedback from your SME clients when they hear about such incentives? Are they motivated in joining you? Well, normally the feedback is quite positive, and the green finance products are not just for enterprises, but also for individuals. For example, we have green building loans. As long as a person buys a green building, then such loan can be provided. Yeah, so when we buy a house in the future, we also need to be careful about such certificate in order to get loans and mortgages. Yeah, we just heard that the financial industry can really do a lot. We can really work on responsible investment. I want to know, Sinopac, Bank Sinopac, you pays a lot of attention to energy market transaction. So what is the transaction model, and what is the situation right now? Well, I think the fact that I'm talking about this issue probably pales in front of Mr. Liao from Chinese Holdings. In the past, only Taipower could sell electricity. If you drive a Tesla EV, you may know that in the past, when you went to a golf course to charge your car, you wouldn't get charged because only Taipower was able to sell electricity. But after some amendments of our laws and regulations, nowadays there can be an intermediary role. For example, Chinese, in addition to power generation, they also sell electricity as part of their businesses. So when I purchase electricity from them, I'm sure that I can receive electricity, and the seller is sure to get paid. But some enterprises, some SMEs, are relatively smaller. Such brokers don't require large amounts of capital. Their management capabilities and technologies are more important. But here comes a problem. How do sellers trust such brokers when they have such a limited scale? So when we understand such market situation, Bank Sinopac wants to do something. So when electricity is sold to TSMC or Yoda, the prices are better than selling electricity to Taipower, and we want to create additional profits for our clients. Our bank has a relatively larger capital, and we are in general trusted. So in the middle, we play the role of capital manager to make sure that in this process of transaction, all the rights are protected. You asked about the status of the market. Maybe Mr. Liao from Chinese can add some comments. When TSMC started to purchase solar power and wind power nowadays, the transactions have been very active. But when it comes to SMEs purchases, the transactions are smaller. So for power plants, they feel that the demand is high, so they want to sell with a higher price. Let me go deeper about this. There are two types of licenses. Type 1, Chinese belongs to this, and Type 3. So for Type 3 power plants, in order to sell electricity, there are many administrative procedures which incurs costs. And second, when the demand is high, they want to sell at a higher price. They are motivated to do so because of the administrative cost that I mentioned, and also they need to talk with their bank because for the bank, this has some risks involved. But for buyers, they want to buy green electricity, but cost is still a concern. They may think that when I spend so much money buying green electricity, maybe my competitiveness would go down. So such transactions are just beginning. We know that there will be a lot of pressure in the future, but the pressure right now is not yet that tangible. So many companies are still observing. What we want to do is to establish a good structure so that everyone is willing to participate in green electricity transactions and with good tools. So for big power plants and big enterprises, the transactions are active. But for SMEs, it's still challenging for them to purchase green electricity. So what we do is to establish a good platform so that they can achieve a consensus in terms of prices. Maybe next year or 2 years from now, the markets will prosper even more. Mr. Liao, I think if I want to conclude what you said in one sentence, I can say that the transparency in this market still needs to improve because the sellers and the buyers may need a transparent platform which doesn't exist. So the negotiation time is quite long, which makes that there is still room for this market to become more dynamic. Is there a solution? Well, we have an ambition, which is that if our platform can be accepted by the market, then we can collect a lot of transaction data, and maybe we can work with Chinese on an index or something like that, so that everyone can understand the real-time situation of the market. But this is for the future. We have to first wait for the market to be more mature before we do this. And in that case, people know what their costs will be and what their profits will be. Mr. Liao, what do you think about this? In the future, are you optimistic about such development? Because I know that electricity sellers have a lot of concerns. If prices are too transparent, maybe that may impact your profitability. Well, Mr. Liao from Bank Sinopac mentioned a few factors. The supply is not enough right now. First of all, for power generators, there are different licenses. So for smaller ones, Type 3 is applied, and they can only sell electricity to Type Power. In order to sell electricity directly to users, that requires Type 1 license, which is governed more strictly, and the cost is higher. So for smaller power plants, their electricity cannot enter into this market. So the government needs to think about the management and the control on Type 1. Should it be this strict? Because the market and the technologies are already very mature. So the government needs to think about whether or not the governance should be this strict. And second, for users and consumers, be them individuals or enterprises, we still need government policy to direct us. How free or how liberal should this market be? Of course, prices can become lower, but there are some other costs. The UK is a great example of complete liberalization. Every day, people can change their contracts and suppliers on a daily basis with different price calculations. But when energy is in shortage, prices may go up very rapidly, but usually people can enjoy lower electricity prices. So I think for Taiwan to identify a clear objective, this is really a tough issue. This requires our collective efforts, including the government, power suppliers, and banks. We need to think about the best policy for the entire society.
So I'd like to ask a question. So when we talk about green energy, well, in fact, what we are using now is probably called gray energy, right? So what's the price difference between green energy and gray energy? I think company owners probably know. Currently, for households, per kilowatt hour, it's about 3 Taiwan dollars, but green energy costs 5. So green energy is indeed more expensive. Well, I guess in the afternoon, the speakers will also talk about it. Now, we want to transform our industries. We also want to change our lifestyles. But when the energy costs is low, then of course people will not have any problem shifting to green power, let's say, if green power is also cheap. But if you have to think about your costs, if you use a lot of energy in your business, then of course more expensive energy will make you think twice. But another issue that we have to think about is energy efficiency. It can be a factor at play as well. Now, we actually take inventory of the resources that we consume. So we'll see like which floor uses the most water and the most energy. And then when people have the information, then they think about how to save resources. What about your floor? Well, there are very few people on my floor because only top managers are there. Well, in fact, we don't just look at the absolute number. We look at the per capita number. So we require reduction year after year. Well, I guess in this room, we also have many people from the energy industry. Of course, I'm not an expert in this area, but I believe that everyone wants the trading to be more transparent. So now I want to ask CEO Liang Baohua. The financial industry, the energy industry, and companies are trying to cut emissions, but the general public should also think about lifestyle changes. So what do you think what kind of change do you think we'll see in the future? Well, I guess the financial industry is investing in all these green energies, and that shows a very clear direction. In the past, let's say Dow Jones Index, the biggest companies used to be oil companies, but they are no longer the leaders, and their market cap has been falling. So it's a very clear trend. Chairperson Shen previously mentioned two Taiwanese companies, Century Steel and also Yongguan. So one makes underwater foundations, the other makes transition pieces and other components. So I think the direction of development is already very clear. The speakers from the financial industry already mentioned that companies with good ESG practice will enjoy better interest rates. And in the future, I think companies with poor ESG records will not get any funding, and they could be penalized. And we mentioned earlier that the EU is imposing the CBAM mechanism in October, and the CBAM will be implemented in a more comprehensive way in 2027. It's not a punitive tariff, but the idea is to prevent carbon leak. They want to prevent a situation where European Union companies move their factories elsewhere to try to avoid the carbon fees. So again, this is to prevent carbon leak. And in Taiwan, if we want to sell products to the EU, we have to produce our products following the same standards. So as a company, if a company doesn't cut carbon emissions, if you want to sell to Europe, then the costs will become a lot higher. Now, if the costs are higher, then your margins will fall. So I think that means that such companies will be less attractive to investors as well. So again, the direction is very clear. Many ETFs are also focusing on ESG themes. So I think a while ago, obviously, people were all focusing on the electric car market. I guess many people regret not investing previously. I think the same kind of situation will happen again and again because the new trend emerges, and that will be where the future market is. So we have to focus on all these issues. I guess this is also the reason why we're here in this room. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Liang. The financial industry indeed plays a very important role in the net zero journey. Of course, this is something that all of us have to work together. We need to work together for a better life, for a greener future. Once again, a round of applause for our panelists. We are very happy to hear all the pledges from the financial institutions. This journey requires every one of us to be part of it. Thank you. Thank you very much to our distinguished guests, and I also want to thank you for joining us in this room today. Thank you. Thank you to our panelists. We have a live streamed English event online. We have more than 2,000 people following our English channel and about 1,500 following our Chinese channel. Our afternoon session will begin at 2 p.m. Taipei time. And in the afternoon session, we'll focus on the energy sector. So this marks the end of the morning session. Thank you very much. We'll see you next time.